rock and roll. To be a little confession, I'm a big fan of Guns N' Roses. I really hope to get some Welcome to the Jungle. But no, if this is really a jungle. Also a great moment to speak, right after lunch, right after somebody from Côte d'Azur. I hope I get my story across to you. Eindhoven's story is a mix of branding, marketing, and media, and I'll show you how media and social media, of course, is part of our proceedings. I'll show you a little bit from what is Eindhoven for those of you who don't know it and where we're from, and I try to, that's even my aim for today, for this afternoon, to also extend your vocabulary a little bit by introducing a term that we are using in Eindhoven, which is not tourism, but doerism with a D. We want to have people doing stuff. A little bit about the town. Eindhoven is an old town. It started in 1232. It had its city rights, but then a long time nothing happened until the company Philips came to Eindhoven. Probably you know Eindhoven from Philips, and you know it from the football club PSV, which are most notable, sub-brands in the city. And this Philips kind of changed this town enormously. And when Philips came, Eindhoven was 5,000 people. Nowadays it's 221,000 people. So you can almost say it's a city where the presence of a really dominant company influenced also the development of the city enormously. Philips grew at a huge rate, a rate that we now kind of compare to, let's say, the Facebooks and the Spotifys of this world, to be a little bit in this region. But you could say that also created a lot of pressure because the city could not cope with the pace. So the company started helping with social services, started helping with buildings, started helping with the fire brigade and stuff. So it's a city that's also is accustomed that let's say the state, the city government, the companies, that they work together in really close harmony. That's kind of in the nature of people in Eindhoven. It's also very much a city of pioneers. You could say if you grow from 5,000 people to 220,000 people, and you attract a lot of new people to your town, not only from Holland, but also from all over the world. Creative people, technical people, they came to Eindhoven. And also was a lot of, let's say, creative thinking, new thinking in the city. And that's also turned out to products that some of you may know, from media from the past, like the music cassette or the CD player. But also the CD player was not only important for the music industry, but also for the information technology as a distributor, of course, of information. Sorry, pushing the wrong button, or no button at all. Oh, there he is. What also is very notable for Eindhoven is we had a really good crisis, you could say a horrible crisis. End of the 80s, starting of the early 90s. Philips laid off globally 40,000 people, among 10,000 people in the Eindhoven area. Afterwards, DAF, which is a big car manufacturer, they went bankrupt. So that city had a really big problem. But it bounced back, and it really bounced back with a vengeance. And the vengeance in a positive sense, because what had happened in Eindhoven is that the city, it created an ambition. And then I'm doing this job now for 2.5 years. Before this I was 10 years marketing manager of the football club in Eindhoven, PSV. But what I see that many cities, they are just there. But the city doesn't not very much cities actually pronounce an ambition, where they want to go, with milestones, with roadmaps. I think that's really important for a city. And the city of Eindhoven said, okay, in 2020, we want to be in the top 10 of high-tech innovation regions, as a heart of that region, of the world. And want to be in top 3 in Europe. So actually, then you go into competition with other cities. Cities that, because you have to acquire talent. You have to acquire startups. You have to acquire creative people, innovative people. You have to acquire research institutes to come to your town. Now that strategy was, don't hope this is going to be a problem. Strategy was kind of executed. And one of the things that we actually did in Eindhoven was also to focus, okay, what is then the story that you want to tell? What is Eindhoven? What does it stand for? And what we did not look actually at the values of the city, but we actually looked like more brand pillars, domains that the city actually is good in and the region is good in and that people recognize. And those domains for us were technology, design and knowledge. The abbreviation is TDK, that's what we also use in the town. And why do I show you this photo of a radio? I once learned it also from a brand professor, and I thought it was a great metaphor for building a brand. Because if you build a brand, you have to kind of find your specific frequency. That's only you, only recognizable by your audience. And when the sound is crisp and clear, and nobody hears any tickling, any other noises, then you can turn up the volume. And this process is a really interesting process because you can learn a lot from that for others. What we also did in Eindhoven is also make specific choices on target audiences and target groups. And for us, they are acquiring these talents and companies. And you could say the inhabitants, local companies, and tourism is not a primary focus. You could say it's a secondary target audience. Important, but not, let's say, where we focus on mainly. The city marketing organization was called Eindhoven 365. We could have called it Eindhoven Branding or Eindhoven Marketing. We didn't. Both of those URLs were already gone, so there was a setback. The other idea was that you do something every day. Every day the city is active, the city is alive, and every day is the company or the organization accessible, and so therefore this name. When we focus on marketing, we use the traditional, you could say, the pillars. We focus on, I can point with this one, the technology, design, and knowledge in the top, together with the city. We do the stuff like sports, the amenities, the housing. That's responsibility of the city or the city council, and the fun and games, let's say, is a bit in the middle. Now, how does this work? If we look, for example, at the target audience students, we focus on the top with really recognizable products and projects. The city, of course, does the housing stuff and the sports and the facilities and infrastructure, and fun and games, as I told you, in the middle. Now, this is an example of fun and games. The guy in the middle, that's my Elderman. He's a really young guy. Joost is his name, Joost Helms. He's 32 years old. Next to him is 2 8s, as you can see. And this was a world record attempt, and try, it worked, you could say, of building a bridge, the world's largest bridge, out of beer crates. Now, this probably does say something about Eindhoven. Actually, it collapsed 5 minutes later after this photo, but the world record was okay. And I think this is the stuff that you do with students, so that they understand this is a nice city, things are going on, and because it is a university city, yes, we'll have to attract those. But a project where you can really make a dent in media and a dent globally is the project was called Solar Team Eindhoven, where actually the students of the Technical University, they built a car, and they drove this car from North Australia to South Australia. But unique of this car is that it's energy positive. It creates more energy than it uses. And it holds 4 people. And it, as you can see, it was driving down in Australia. I think this is, for me, Australia, a bit different than the images I saw this morning. But of course, these are rocks, these things there. This is, of course, the car. So you also see how this scale is if such a rock ends up on the road. Now, the beauty of such a project is that it gets a lot of attention. And for us, it's this external attention, getting the notice from the BBC and all other top international media. That kind of tells a story for us, and that's kind of part of the way how we go about. Same with a project we called the WK Robocop. We had a world championship for robots in Eindhoven last year. Autonomous robots playing against each other, pre-programmed robots. We had a really big luck that the Queen of Holland, one of the first things that she did as she was the new Queen, Queen Maxima, she opened the event, and she got a handshake and a nice piece of flower and a handsome guy from Eindhoven, as you can see. But this photo, and also the whole story about it, that also traveled the world and the internal media. For us, it's really a good way to tell, and that others tell, what we are doing and what's happening. This is actually from a website from Syria, so you can even see how far things can spread if you have good content and a good story to tell. Now, for us, it's really important to have this TDK, technology, design, knowledge, philosophy, having it in all aspects of, let's say, city policies. So in sports, in culture. In sports, we don't focus that much on the football club. We focus very much on the swimming pool we're having in Eindhoven, because it's a really unique swimming pool. Not because of the water, of course, but because of in the swimming pool there's a technology which even makes the swimmers that they can dive into a certain angle. And so the top swimmers of Holland, which win the Olympic medals, they all train in this bath. because the technology makes their performance better, and that story, of course, resonates through medals. And when we have big events in Eindhoven, of course, we try to, of course, benefit from that, but that's not the real issue. What we also did with our policy is also, what kind of events do you have in the city? What events are part of this brand strategy, and what events kind of are more interesting for having people have just a good life, or a comfortable life, or a fun life. Because you have to, if you have to attract people, you also want them to stay with their families. So we have make a difference between on-brand and off-brand. So events that actually are contributes to this brand strategy, they are called on-brand, and they are also treated differently, financed differently than brands which are off-brand, and they're much more for the social life or the cultural life for in town. And I'll show you some examples of that later on. But in the end, also marketing is also having to have an economic effect. That's what I really liked about the story of the southern France. There's a business side to tourism and marketing. You have to create an economic effect for the shops, for the restaurants, for the hotels, and because they in the end pay the money to get your marketing organization going. And what we then do is once a year we really try to focus attention, focus budgets. For example, in a weekend only dedicated to shopping. Also with images that more fits Eindhoven and the typical, you could say, visual language that we're having. And what we also really like in Eindhoven is that you always get a counter reaction from the locals, from the inhabitants. They make a little mockery with your beautiful banners, and they start making their own banners in not so designish style. But I think this mix is really good. We also do a really large-scale project. One of them is Eindhoven is King. So we have a national holiday when the King nowadays is will be celebrated. That's a big thing in Holland. Everybody dresses in orange. For us, very much focused, of course, on the family, but also very much focused on music, because techno music also has its origins from Eindhoven. With comparison, Eindhoven and Detroit. And when you have a party, we have a really good party with good branding and with lots of people on our main square. So in this, let's say, weekend of Queen's Day, we have some 250,000 people coming to Eindhoven just to dance and to celebrate that our king is 1 year extra. I think not many other reasons for that. You could say two tasks that we had as a city marketing organization: create a strategy, as I explained to you briefly, and the other one is to create a brand for Eindhoven. Because if they don't know you from a clear image, if they don't know you who you are, where you stand for, it's really difficult then to start marketing if the branding is not correct. And we solved that discussion in a typical Eindhoven way. We did not do a job and send it out to different agencies and ask them after a brief, what do you think? No, what we started was a community, which we called virtual design agency, kind of a virtual community with different agencies, many of them competitors with each other, from each other, and asked them together to design and create this brand Eindhoven. And they were kind of the best of the best. So it's a bit of the analogy of a national football team. Once for a big tournament, you pick the best players from the whole country, and then they suddenly have to play football together. This is a bit the same. So we pick the best talent, also social talent, also web designers, architects, fashion designers. And this was this starting group. And it really created some interesting photos, even on moments. And you can see here two competitors working together. You see one is the thinker and one is the drawer. But actually this was a really great energy that started. In the beginning a little bit strange, and still the project is now 1 year old. They're still together, and they're doing still other jobs now, where they kind of took the borders between their companies, took them away. And also I think important, if as a owner of the job, so let's say the client, the commissioner, you also should be part of this whole process. So we also judged it very clearly, very strongly together. Because it was a really complex task that we had, because Eindhoven did not have a really clear, let's say single image. It was always a collage, different images, and that was kind of a representation of when you saw something about Eindhoven. Another thing which really struck me in the world of place branding, city marketing was there's always many different logos, identities, brands of a single owner. Which is kind of strange, because this was the Eindhoven situation, where you actually had the former Eindhoven logo, the crest, and this was the marketing logo, or more the slogan you could say. And that I found really strange. And we did a lot of research into city branding and city marketing. And we found that almost all cities have multiple logos. And mainly they have a logo one for the marketing, and they have one for the municipality, for the city inhabitants. You could say, why is that? Let's say a commercial company doesn't have a different logo for its personnel than for its customers. And the really odd one, of course, is Melbourne. I'm a big fan of Formula 1, so this is the one you always see on the racetrack. But this is actually the city marketing logo of Melbourne, which is one of the best in the world. It's designed by Lander Associates in London, but it's actually for the municipality, and it's not a marketing brand. So you can sometimes get discussed. So the big thing in Eindhoven, of course, was can we go to a single brand? Does our municipality and the client accept that we go to a single brand? So one brand for the inhabitants and one brand to present your city, let's say, in a marketing and in a broader sense. Now we got that clearance, and we made some choices for the brand, because it's for us not just a logo or a shield mark or a word mark. For us it's a logo. We created a specific typeface for the city. We created a photography style and a tone of voice. So how do you speak? What's the text that you use in and we very much refer to the energy that's in Eindhoven. Eindhoven is a really energetic city. Really, you can sense that in the air. Also, this energy has its history. This is kind of the visual language that Philips used 100 years ago. And we transferred that into this logo. Really strong, you could say not everybody's friend logo, but something that's really clearly, really visible. Also a very smart logo. Slim is the Dutch word for smart. I couldn't get it out of the sheet, to be honest. And with this pattern also, you can also do strange things. And the fun thing is that we kind of said we can use it dynamically. So we have a strict version we use for official municipality communication, and there's a kind of free version we kind of give also to the inhabitants or to organization Eindhoven that they want to use. And I'll show you some examples of it. And we're really, could say, lenient about that. Flexible in use. This is not yet finished yet, but I think it's an idea what you can do when you have kind of an identity that can be played with, can be toyed with. This is the typeface together with the logo. Also the typeface has this roughness, a little bit edgy. It's like it's almost unfinished and kind of created with tape. But you get a feeling that it's very, let's say, fitting with Eindhoven. Also for the images, no longer any postcard images of your local, let's say, landmarks, as long as you have them. But more also images that show this energy, this vitality that's in this town. And also very much focused also on young people, because young people, of course, for us really important, because they are the next generation that we have to attract either to come to Eindhoven, or even better, and to learn a technical tool, or to study medicine or study life science, because those are the jobs that we need for our future. We shared this process really openly. We started a blog. All designs, also failures, all ideas were on the blog. Shared it also very openly with the city, just as you can see in the wall, in the muppies and abris as we call them, in the public squares. Lots of light suggestions. Eindhoven is also, of course, City of Light, heritage from Philips. And you also can see kind of before, after, that you can also get a much more clearer text, a much more clearer visual image by using this way. These are the trucks and the little cars that are driving in Eindhoven. The local bus is changed in this whole style. This was the logo that was used by the municipality for the elections. We had the municipality elections 2 weeks ago in Eindhoven. So you can see you can actually play with it and use it in a really good way. This is a local Eindhoven merchandising. This is just a roll of tape. So also kind of metaphorically we connect people and you connect stuff together, and therefore you use the tape. This is the logo in use by a local microbrewery. We translated it into a beer kind of design. And every time these people ask, is it possible, can we do it? And we say yes, we really love these kinds of use. Because it's, I think, a really positive way, as long as you keep it handy. And this is also an interesting thing that's now happening. We see a lot of the tattoos coming up. And we talked about this morning about social influencers, and I always learned that there's something even more important, and that's really your brand advocates, and people that really love your brand. The Apple story, the why is, of course, how do you get these people to love this Apple brand and tell that about to everybody. I think that's the same that you could do that with the city. People are many times in love with the city and like to express also this love. But if your images are not clear or the tools are not sufficient to express this love, I think this is a good example of good. You can doubt that, of course. This is another one. Actually, a guy who works in a very different city, but he just loved the brand and he loved Eindhoven, so he created a tattoo on his arm. And this is permanent. You can kind of joke with this one, of course. It also leads to really strange stuff. We got this idea sent from, this is the Norwegian curling team, dressed in Eindhoven. I think it's not that serious, but I think it's also good that people do a little bit of mockery and a bit of playfulness, and that they actually sense it. They also make this correlation between the brand and the town. So you can say it's not just marketing what we do, we make stuff, we also make use of what's in the city, which is really important, those assets. You really need those content. And what we in Eindhoven very much do, also we play over time. Because you can't be the same whole year long. You can also play with that. So this changing your city temporarily into something different, with a different outlook, that's actually part of the ideas that we are using. So for example, 1 week a year, we have in Eindhoven a week we call the Dutch Design Week, very much focused on Dutch design. We attract, let's say, 220,000 people, almost as much as our inhabitants. Half is business, half is, let's say, leisure, coming to just get to sense design. We of course also use it to show areas of the city where actually they need some boost or need some presence and to bring their activities and to promote those urban areas. And it also gets a very strange week for this town because it gets a totally different vibe in those areas than it's normally in Eindhoven. It's the 1 week that our design academy opens its doors to everyone, and the graduates show their work. And the beauty of our week is, and that's why also we had a theme called Now Future, is actually during that week every creative person, atelier, workshop, they open their doors. So we don't actually show the finished product, we actually show the process. And that's why we say you can see the future in Eindhoven, because you can see stuff that's being created or come to market 2 years later, or 3 years, or maybe never enter the market. And this is, I think, also a great example of social media. And this was a design by a lady from the Design Academy. And she created a kind of a knitting stool for elderly women, and so they can sit together and play together and create it together and interact together as a kind of social design. Also can use it. So I think it's not just being social in digital, also social in all aspects is really, really important. So there's now future for us important, but this story has to be told. So we, of course, like examples this morning, fly in people, accommodate them, help them, but marketing through external media, of course, is really important. How do the national television in Holland tell our story? How do we get them this far? So one of the biggest websites and most decisive websites in the design world is called The Zine. I'll show you later. We got the chief editor of The Zine in Eindhoven, and he really, really loved the whole Dutch Design Week. He actually said you put all other design weeks to shame. That was his second remark. His first remark was, when he stepped out of this beautiful Mini that we got him for him, was, it's actually quite an ugly city. Thank you. So my question to him was, okay, if you do a tweet, could you please tweet the second remark, the one about putting the others to shame. But in his blog, this one ended up, the future is a small, ugly town in the south of Holland. Now, thank you very much. We have some similarities with Rovaniemi. I hope I'm pronouncing it well after the beer of yesterday. Because also Eindhoven suffered a lot during the Second World War and also had its city center kind of changed and refurbished. So we're a modern city, not that historic city, small, but with lots and lots of ambition and activities. And this is for me a really important city. It kind of summarizes what for us our region is. And everybody has, you all have, of course, two brain parts, a left and a right brain part. And where the right one is really the creative one, left is much more the nerdy one. And the fun thing of Eindhoven is that they're kind of in balance. And we are strong in both. And that's very rare. Cities usually tend towards one or towards the other. In Eindhoven there's a good balance between those two. And therefore in Eindhoven we don't only have a Dutch Design Week, we also have a Dutch Technology Week, where we really favor technology and also present that. Actually in one sheet to get this effect, to attract people coming to you, coming to town, but very importantly, young people getting interested in technology and doing things with their hands, because making things, manufacturing industry, in the end, that's the future for all of us. It's not going to China. Of course, let's say the lower market part goes to China, but the really high-end part is really working well in Germany, in Eindhoven, and on the other parts, of course, of Holland. But that's for much our focus. And then when you have this technology, you can play with it. So for example, we're playing with food. We did a contest between a 3D printer and a chocolatier. Who can mix the really best chocolate, the 3D printer, or the manual labor and the historical science of really a craftsman as a chef. Of course, the chef won. The thing from the 3D printer was unedible, the same as these snacks that were handed out at Food Hack. Actually, they tasted like they're looking. It's a bit of the same, it doesn't work either. But you can also play, you can use food as an intermediate to tell your story. We're doing a quiz with young people, with old people, with researchers, with bright talents, all together. Who wins, has the most knowledgeable mind in Eindhoven. And we're now kind of finding that this way of very fixed storytelling, that it works. And we're picked up by Forbes as being we're one of the world's 50 most inventive cities. We are picked up by Financial Times, and that was one really big boon, because they put us on as a number 3 as a place where investors, the best place they can put their money for the future is in Eindhoven. So for us it was really unique. Suddenly you're up there with London, with Helsinki and Eindhoven. So the scale is kind of almost a little bit intimidating, but also for us a really good remark. And that again created many more content and many more publicity from the Yahoos and the CNNs of this world. And that's kind of letting others tell the story. But one of the most important people telling that story was from a blogger from Greece, who created this 8+1 reasons Eindhoven is the dream location for a tech company. And he made in the end the best analysis of why these things are working in this the city. We're really happy with him. And we used his content and his ideas and ended up with a campaign which is now running in Eindhoven these days, which we were saying we are future-proof. If you work in Eindhoven, if you live there, if you study there, we have a future for you, because we have a job and we have business and that's actually usable. So it's saying online media, social media, what's the relevance in that strategy? Yeah, of course, we also want to make and create fans. Fans of cities is really, really important. That's what you want to have. For us it was really strange when we started that the website, the web address, I could better say, facebook.com/Eindhoven was already taken. And I thought it was really important to be owner of this most logical URL. Now, luckily the guy was also a designer. He works at TomTom, Bart. So Bart handed over the website. So now this is facebook.com/Eindhoven. But it's kind of interesting if you look at Facebook, who owns those domains. This is facebook.com/Amsterdam. Proud owner Jack Amsterdam. This is facebook.com Milan. From Elvira Milan. And to make things really creative, she uses I Amsterdam as her imagery. Of course, there's an Amsterdam page on and everything that's okay. But the most logical URL, it's gone, it's taken, and it's not protected even by Facebook. It's kind of worrying. London. This is facebook.com/London. We all love New York. Facebook.com/New York. But there is a Facebook.com/New York City. So initially I thought that's great. They used the name New York City. But you worry, why is there a pizza here? Now there's a pizza here because it's owned by New York Pizza. And if you click on any links, you get a double tasty and everything. I think it's a bit worrying that Facebook doesn't have kind of any logic. And the pages that are empty, they're kind of taken by Facebook to make any bad use of it, but I think it should be a bit more clever about it. Now, what we also think very important in social media is to really emphasize the word social. So you should be social in social media. So for us, it's also working together with other, let's say, Facebook.com sites or subsites that have much more traffic than we have. And a good example, of course, is the Facebook.com Visit Holland. They have many people coming there. So last year we had this incredible ice skating ring in Eindhoven, where you actually had a light, you could say, building on the skating ring. And to promote that, we had this photo sent over to the Visit Holland Facebook website. They put it online, and that created for us enormous kind of amounts of retweets and resendings, and getting it all globally, into India, into China, into all kinds of countries, where they kind of people start reacting to it. So this kind of multiplier is also really important to have that. A good same story with Facebook is kind of also happening in Pinterest. We thought it was really important to have a really strong Pinterest.com/Eindhoven, where the images of your city are fitting to what you are, and not making something strange, or not having somebody else getting hold of it and misusing it. So we put up the images of our town on our Pinterest page, and it actually worked. Now, to get people using social media, I think it's also important to also accommodate the Wi-Fi. So already for 1.5 years we have free Wi-Fi in the whole city center of Eindhoven, especially in the squares, the main squares. And because we also have these kinds of visitors in town, you could say this is the modern knowledge worker, just sitting in public squares using the Wi-Fi and doing his Skype communicating. This is also going on in town, and also I think in many towns, all the towns that you people here represent, or regions. So you have to work with that. And I think also a good example is be social in what other people do with social campaigns. We really loved the St. Patrick's Day campaign of Ireland, and they asked us to have the landmarks, put them in green light. Now, this is the landmark of Eindhoven. It's called the Rovaniemi. It used to be kind of a tech center for Philips, to also make people more interested in technology. And it was created in a green light setting. And we used this photo, and the Ireland promotion people also used it. So you can have, if you're still small, you can use somebody else's reach to make your own reach a lot bigger. And the last example, a bit to show you what you can do with social media. We had an event 2 weeks ago which is called Maker Days, because we really want to get this feeling for making stuff and get that love for that. And we created a logo. This is a photo of the event. And the logo was kind of sent globally, of course, through the internet as a digital file. And we asked people that to print it out on their own 3D printers, and then make a photo of yourself, with your, let's say, something in your own hometown that gets recognizable. I think that's the good word, with your logo, and to use that kind of as a viral campaign. So 3D technology, viral technology, and social media in one, and also to bring people together on a global scale. And that was kind of the start of this campaign. And they ended up printing kind of logo stones with the Eindhoven logo. Really happy with that, so can distribute them. So sorry, I don't have anything to give away, no videos, but I really want to end with just some thoughts. So I think it's really important to activate the DNA of your brand. And so don't be anything that you're not, but if you're something specific, really use that. Create engaging content, because you really need to have content, and you really need to have events to have people talk about you and to really love you. Involve the visitors, online and offline. I think it's really important. And we really like to be people and not be passive tourists, but be active tourists. So transform them from tourists into doerists, and that they actually do something when they visit your town, or eventually for us it's important, when they stay in your town. Okay, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Peter. We've run a little bit out of time, but your story was very inspiring, so it's nice to hear all of it.
Start later.
That's true. Are there some questions from the audience? No questions. One of the things that struck me in your presentation was that you have the municipality actually participating in all of this.
Yeah.
And I don't think, you mentioned it's part of your DNA, but I don't think that makes other cities have similar setups like that. What would your advice be? Because I think you can only pull this off if a municipality really collaborates with you and actually works on this. What advice would you have for anyone in the room that would like to embark on a typical, on this journey? How do you get the municipality to join?
Yeah, I think for us it's really important also that people understand, not only that your citizens understand your strategy, but also let's say the politics understands it. Because the good thing in Eindhoven is everybody understands that to have a future as a town, because you also had this history of this really negative economic side, that people know that it's an unstable thing. The economy is unstable. You see a lot of cities are now into problems economically. So I think the city and the politics understand if you choose, you have to choose right. And if you choose, then you have to stick to those choices. In the beginning, it's really tough that, and we had to tell the politics, it's technology, design, and knowledge. That doesn't really sound like something friendly, and so they had to get used to that you can translate design into great events, into social events. And the same actually happened also with the brand. We convinced them that actually money is best spent if you focus on a single brand. But why maintain two brands? So there's also an efficiency and an economic side to it. And that with, I think in the end, the form factor that they really liked, created an acceptance, and now gradually turning into a love.
It kind of also feels that when you showed that your primary and secondary target audiences, is that it feels you're not focusing as much on tourism, but you have, because of your strategy, different primary target audiences. Was it a tough decision to make? Because there are not a lot of cities that actually have that sort of as a front thing, like more tourists.
The only museum, we have two museums in Eindhoven. We have the Van Allen Museum, it's a museum for let's say high-end art, and the other one is a Philips museum. And so it's typical Eindhoven. But I think there's a ranking in Holland from the money spent in tourism, and on that ranking, so it's the number of visitors times the money they spend, and we're now number 4 city in Holland as a tourist city. But in the end, our product is shopping, because we're just a great shopping city with lots of the big brands and also a large, let's say, surroundings where people come to Eindhoven and do their shopping. And we also have a lot of people coming now from northern Belgium to town. But it's you could say, how do you define tourism? So if shopping is a great tourism product, we focus on that. And as a byproduct, some of these people also go into the museum. But the museum is not the primary focus for them. But it's, hey, there's also a great museum in town. But in the end, I think people judge you by the economic effect that you're having. So in the end, if the hotels and the restaurants and the shop owners say, okay, marketing is doing well, because despite declines in inner cities, because a lot of inner cities have big problems with 20-30% less people visiting a city, we got that stable in Eindhoven just by investing also in good amenities, but also in events that attract a lot of people, kind of as a sampling for, hey, you can also visit in another weekend. So this playing with time, I think that's a really big asset, and usually a city is focused on being something all year long. And we just kind of like a sine wave, we play with the city, being boring, being energetic, being normal again. And that makes you kind of, makes people interested in you, kind of curious.
Any last questions from the audience?
Sorry,
I hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry, hope everyone's hearing me. When you got the design agencies and the architects and stuff, how did you, did they come for free, or how did you encourage that to compete against each other and work together and come up with a unified idea?
Now, we asked them one key question, and the key question was that they really had to have a strong bond with Eindhoven. Because such a job, designing a new identity for a city, is a job that comes by, let's say, every 15, 20 years. And it's not something that you do on a regular basis. So we handpicked let's say, the agencies that we thought they're already investing in the city itself and by doing events for themselves, contributing in the Dutch Design Week and stuff. So they share their common love for town. And we convinced them that kind of we also own the brand together. And the upside also for them, of course, they got paid for the whole job, is also that a lot of other, let's say, cultural and also business projects are now looking into this community approach as a design solution. And the fun thing also was, maybe it's the last remark, there was also just one single design created. Because the community said, and what you just saw, that is the logo, the identity fitting with Eindhoven. We didn't present a choice, city council, which of the three do you like? We told them, this is the one. And they accepted it because it came from the community. So it was difficult in paying people because some agencies were one-person agency and other were 20 or 30-person agency. But in the end, we found a good balance in that, and people are really loving this approach. I think it's really also a 2014 way of how to create content and how to create a brand. Good, yeah?
Thank you, Peter, for this great story.
Yeah, thank you very much.